Hi.
Yes. Hi.
It's very complicated. I've never done it before. I've always used FaceTime.
Oh, well,
But anyway, we're there.
yeah, done very well. Yeah, it's always tricky when you're not used to doing something. So thank you for giving it a go. So I think I'm probably ready to go if you are, Barry.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm going to start off talking about the new Avengers, and then we'll move on to some of your other.
Okay. Yeah.
That's okay. I am going to begin just for my own reference, just to sort of guide my questions a little bit. I'm just going to play a bit of the episode in front of me because my TV is just ahead of me, just so I can sort of. So if you see me looking not at you occasionally, okay. I'm referencing the episode. So I'm just going to start that. So just press play. It's quite warm today. I don't know if it's been warm where you are.
It's warm. It's warm. It's lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a change, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? It's been a very strange summer.
Yeah, June's very warm, and then
rain.
Rain. Well, mind you, given the state of Europe, I think we've had the better turn of it.
I've worked. Well, it's such a sad thing, that fire in Portugal. It's such a beautiful country.
Oh yeah. I've been quite a few years ago now, but yes, it's a bit more. Well, I've been to Spain as well, and I think I probably prefer Portugal.
While it's interesting, I have a son who rides a motorbike. Well, all my sons ride motorbikes, but he goes from the south of Portugal to the north on tracks only, with a map, and it's just the most extraordinary thing, he says, and camps and everything.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's a nice way to see the country, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to start the episode now. So the first thing I wanted to ask you, Barry, was how did the New Avengers come into your life to begin with? Do you remember kind of how it fell into your lap?
Casting, literally. I think it was Mary Selway who cast me for. I got one of everything of those she ever did. So I was quite popular with Mary Selway. And the New Avengers came along. And you just did them, the Protectors, Heart to Heart, all those sort of things. So that was the New Avengers, but I quite liked working on the New Avengers. I can only remember very vaguely. It was so long ago. But I remember the fight sequence at the beginning and all that. And as I told you, my son said, "Why didn't you fight back?" Because she's a girl and all that. But that wasn't in the dialogue. But Patrick Macnee was fantastic. He was great.
I mean, you say you don't fight back in the scene, but it is still quite brutal. Sort of a bit of action. I don't know whether what you thought of your episode after seeing it again recently.
Yes, you wonder how you were that young. That's all. Really. It's. I mean, they were all. I keep saying this, but they were all like the same. The Protectors, Heart to Heart. I mean, in Heart to Heart, I managed to Stephanie, somebody. She was brilliant, and I had to ride a motorbike. You've got to be careful on that motorbike. He didn't really know I could ride a motorbike, but anyway, there things like that. I thought they were brilliant, those things, and it was work and things like that. And we just did them. All the televisions that came up. I did. My main work was always in the theatre. Yeah. So these were like bonuses, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. So this was a nice little injection of income while you were doing your kind of passion.
It also paid the bills. And the variety of things you did. I mean, I was always a sort of gangster, which was interesting playing those funny characters. I remember doing the Protectors and the Protectors. Oh, I did them all. And in one, I had to shoot a lot of people, and that was interesting as well. You go home and have tea and say, how's the day going? Oh, I shot about 4 people today. But they're not dead.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Oh, yeah. So it's interesting. Well, I suppose the thing is the actor, isn't it? You get all different hats to sort of to put on. One of your fellow villain in the opening scene is Richard Ireson, who is happy to say still with us. One of the very few people that there is, unfortunately, from this episode, but also New Avengers.
We're hanging on for it. We're hanging on.
I'm very glad you are. Yes. And yeah. So did you remember working with Richard at all?
Not particularly, no. I don't remember specifically that. No, I remember we worked together quite well, and I remember at the end of we were all together at the end of the shoot in a sort of with Patrick McNee, and he kept drying all the time. But he did it wonderfully, because he kept saying, "Oh, this is such a strange profession where you have to memorize things, and then you forget." He was so charming from beginning to end. He really was.
Oh, good.
And he also made you feel very comfortable as somebody coming in for that episode and things like that.
So very much a strong leading man type sort of.
Yes. Yeah. Lovely man.
Yeah. And of course, the director for this episode is Sidney Hayes, who directed an awful lot of the Avengers and New Avengers.
I don't remember him at all. No, not at all. No.
I always find it's a good thing when people don't remember people sometimes, because it either means that they either had a fantastic relationship with them, or they were really terrible, and that's why they remember them. So if they tend to be in that void, it tends to be that they were good, but sort of, not either way. Did you ever meet Brian Clemens on anything, the writer?
No. Not that I remember. No. No, I know that I know the name, of course, but no, I don't remember. No, I met Joanna Lumley a few times later, as I told you.
Well, yes. So maybe we should talk about Joanna Lumley, because of course she throws you about a little bit in the episode. And what was she like?
She was absolutely charming. And what she made you feel immediately, that there were no other actors ever been there before, that you were the first or the original. And I thought that was really beautiful. She made you feel very welcome without overdoing it.
Right.
That was the thing, and very pleasant. And she's done quite well, hasn't she?
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah, I told you the thing. She used to come to the Royal Shakespeare a lot, when up in Stratford. And I used to meet her there, and she remembers that particular bit of throwing me all over the room. I thought it was Dinny, but I don't think it was at that point. I think I did it myself.
Yes, Dinny turns up a bit later. Yeah,
he does. Yeah. No, she was lovely. They were all lovely.
Oh.
But that specifically, the New Avengers, it didn't stick in my brain like some of them, like Heart to Heart stuck in my brain, because that's Robert Wagner. And Robert Wagner had a bad back, so we had to act to his cardboard statue, which was very peculiar. He wouldn't come out of his caravan. And I thought that was very sweet. And Robert Vaughan, I was pulled out of a window by Robert Vaughan onto the floor. I mean, these are really clever and famous people, so you feel slightly privileged at working with them. But it's brief and it's gone and it's job. That was the thing. But Brian, I can't remember if I met Brian Clemens. I don't think I did, actually. You just got the script, didn't you, really?
I don't think it was. I think the TV is a bit different. Well, I don't think it probably is that the script comes in and the writer's very rarely around. But Brian was what you would probably call nowadays a showrunner, so he would have been a bit more involved than some writers. But it is a great director, a great script, and I think it is one of those episodes that has sort of shown the test of time.
Very good. How they invent a new scenario every week is extraordinary, I think. Because you can't do the same thing. But that's the brilliance of the writing. I mean, look at I did Zcast. What's the big one with? Oh God, I can't remember. A huge scene. John Thor.
Oh, was Sweeney?
Sweeney. I did Sweeney, which was playing a German of all things, and all that. And then I did the film where I was pulled through the window and broke my ankle, and I think I died, and they had a collection, something like that. That was the Sweeney 2 film. But John Thor was great. No nonsense, absolutely straight actor. I liked all that. That was good. And good stuff, good acting stuff.
Oh yeah. One of the actors that is quite memorable in this is Anna Palk, Palk, as Steve's love interest, and she I don't know if you ever encountered her on anything, but she died very early, sadly, at 48. So
Oh dear.
quite a few people, even though we are sort of 45 years on, it's not necessarily age that gets people, and unfortunately.
Yeah. But they keep repeating them, don't they? They keep going out. I get all sorts of strange checks, from Equity and things like that. They repeat them all the time. In some countries, somewhere in like Zambia and places like that, it's quite extraordinary, for which you get about 1 shilling and 4pence or something.
It's a nice little thing that occasionally comes in, and a reminder, isn't it? I suppose.
It's always a surprise.
Yeah. I think the New Avengers, there's a couple of Freeview channels in the UK that the New Avengers and the Saint are on quite often.
Well, she is very popular, isn't she? I mean, she will go on being very popular because of all going around the world with and all that adventures.
Yeah, I think a lot of people come to it probably knowing Joanna Lumley, and then they sort of get on the series. I mean, my mum used to have a Purdy haircut. That was the
really
76. Everybody had the Purdy. I mean, had you seen the original Avengers series? Were you conscious of the show prior to being in it?
I probably watched 1 or 2, but I don't remember. It's so long ago. It really is. Maybe I did see the original. I don't know, but I can't remember. I know there was a third person in there who wasn't. We had a new guy, and the new guy was with us on that first one, but I can't remember who it was. You're going back a long, long time, and as I said, they do merge in all these things.
Oh yeah, because it's just a few days, isn't it, on every single one, and you're going from job sort of thing with theatre, of course, in between. Terence Cooper might be the person you're thinking of. Is the other heavy? He has the bald head and the
right, it was the moustache. Yes,
and he impersonates John Steed later in the episode.
Right,
very famous stunt man. You mentioned Dinny Powell earlier. Did you know Dinny at all?
Dinny Powell would work with me a lot. He was my stunt double on all sorts of things. And when I did Robin Hood, playing Sheriff Mitre, that was the Patrick Bergen, Uma Thurman Robin Hood. He was my stunt double on that. But I did manage to get a lot of riding in because I could ride a horse and go through walk and jump. So I did get a lot of my own stuff in on that. But he was always there, and he brings you lunch. And Dinny was lovely. He was very quiet, very lovely. And worked a lot with Peter Sellers as Peter Sellers' double. So you've got a lot of stories there. It's stories that count in acting. They're wonderful, the stories that go on. No, Dinny was great, but Nosher was a different story. He was quite cold and calculating and different, wasn't friendly. But anyway, that was Dinny.
Because I did quite a few events with a gentleman called Ray Austin, who was a stunt. Started off a stuntman and became a director some New Avengers as well, actually. So he knew Dinny and Nosher, and I had the pleasure of interviewing Gary Powell a few years ago, so a relative of them both.
But what a wonderful name, Nosher Powell.
It is memorable, isn't it?
It is memorable. Get that guy Nosher, great. No, great. I like working with stuntmen because they go unappreciated a lot, and they really do hard work, and they have to put on funny makeups to look like the person they're supposed to be and all that. So I admire them a great deal, and they're incredibly fit. That's the great thing. Actors are never fit, but stunt people are always fit.
Yeah. And they always have at least 1 or 2 very close, cool stories, don't they, as well? And it's always sort of fascinating.
Oh yes, always. Yes, always. Yeah. I nearly lost my life. Yes, when it fell on me, things like that. Yeah.
Done a lot of events with stunt people, and they're some of the most interesting people to talk to because of their perspective on things, and working with actors, and they get to know them quite well. I don't know if you were aware, but at this point in the New Avengers, this is probably one of the last episodes where the money hasn't run out.
Right.
The series 2 is kind of a series of 2 halves. It's the stories that you were in, and those sort of half are still pretty much based at Pinewood. You've got all the good sets and the money, and then of course later on they moved to Canada and France, and it kind of all unfortunately falls apart because of co-funding and things.
Right. I never knew that.
But,
No.
But what was quite interesting watching this episode again is that they do seem to spend a lot of time shooting in on Pinewood, in the big manor house that is there in Pinewood.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons you can tell is that they're going down a corridor and there's a couple of pictures on the wall, and they're from the You Only Live Twice set that Ken Adam designed for the Bond film, and they're just on the staircase, which is quite interesting. What was it like working at somewhere like Pinewood? Do certain studios leave better memories than others?
It was awesome. It was the first job I ever did on film. Oh God, it was the Australian pop singer was in it, and I can't remember. But I was standing outside. I was a man a stevedore working on the docks. So I had a bronze makeup with a beard, very young, and a sort of check shirt, and looking very fit. And a large battered Bentley came to the door, and out got a man at the driving wheel who looked like Trevor Howard, who then opened the door to Trevor Howard at the back, who looked dreadful. And as he came in, he just looked at me and said, "I wish I felt like you looked," and walked in. I never worked with him, but I love it. That was Pinewood. You think, wow, Pinewood. All the films that are made there and were made there is a fantastic history, a brilliant history.
Yeah, I think it's. When I speak to most people, they say it's their favourite studio of
yes.
It seems to have a special significance
and a brilliant canteen.
Most people mention the canteen. Yes, you think of our stomachs, don't we? But,
yes.
So compared to say something like the Saint, which is based at Elstree,
yes.
Did you have any specific memories of things like the Saint and the Protectors?
The Saint. No, I had a very small part in the Saint. I know I had to put my hands in one shot, and I wasn't there, so he did it himself with my hands, things like that. But no, I was just another gangster. I don't remember much about that, but I did play the Saint. Yeah, his daughter did her first. I did her first. She was my daughter in her first film ever in Portugal. And I can't remember what it was called. And he was going to play my part. He wanted to play my part because he wanted to look after her. And mine was Duke de Bar, it was called, The Children's Crusade or something like that. And she was lovely, absolutely lovely, but he wanted to protect her. And on the playing back, the producer said, "You nearly didn't get that part because Roger wanted to do it himself." And I thought, well, if Roger wanted to do it, you could have paid him a lot more than me. But that was an interesting thing. And I did meet him obviously on the Saint, but he was very non-committal, very let's get on with it, let's just do it, I think he was fed up with it by then. But that's all about Roger. But his daughter was lovely.
Deborah Moore. Yeah.
Deborah. Names go when you're 84.
Well, it's only because I'm looking at I've got all the powers of the internet, but I have met Deborah a few times. She goes to conventions and she's really nice.
I think she was 17, something like that.
I think one of her first roles was in The Persuaders that Roger did, and she's a little.
Oh, did she?
A little schoolgirl, and I think she had a scene with Tony Curtis in that one.
Right.
And you're right that by that point Roger probably was a bit fed up with the Saint because that was the last series. He'd been doing it since 62, I think it was, or 61. Well, how about the Champions? Does that have any?
The Champions. I remember the Champions because I thought I got it perfect, but it was a very small scene. I was a guy on the train, like a waiter or not a waiter, but showing Steve Forrest, was it, to his cabin?
Yeah.
And I had about 4 or 5 lines, something like that, very small part. But I thought afterwards, I got that. Yeah. Difficult to establish yourself, but I didn't overplay it. I didn't underplay it. I thought I got it right. I remember the Protectors, but I've never seen it.
And you say Robert Vaughan, did you say he flew out the window?
Robert Vaughan was it. He had to pull me through a van window, yeah. Right. That was another villain. But again, totally charming, but totally matter of fact. Not friendly, not unfriendly, but completely, I'm doing my job, and I'm doing the minimum I can get away with. That was Robert Wall. But nice guy.
I get a sense of with the Protectors that it wasn't the happiest experience. I don't think so. It may have been a little bit of sort of get in and get out. So that yes, the champions Stuart Damon, Alexander Bastido.
I don't think you like working over here. You see, I didn't. Yeah, that's right. She was lovely too. Yeah, they're all great. They're all there in the back somewhere in the brain.
Yeah, I think you were talking about the we crossed over slightly with the Baron there. The Baron was Stephen Forrest. I think.
That was the Baron, was it? That was the Baron.
Yeah, it was Stuart Damon.
You see how you get mixed up, though, don't you? I mean, they're all vaguely similar.
They are indeed, yes.
And I thought Roger Moore was the best ever Bond. For me, he was my favorite because he looked good. He wasn't acting. He was suave and he was gentle. And I just thought he was the best. I liked him.
I think he was my favorite as well. And having met him a couple of times, or see him talk and met him, briefly, he lives up to expectation, which not everybody does. So the Baron was when you were thrown out the window of the train, I'm guessing.
Yes, it was a van, and I remember and they put a mattress down, but they didn't bother about anything else. But he shook hands with me, and then he had to pull me out the van window, and I landed. I thought, well, I'm not a stunt guy, but I did it. You do it, you just do it, and they hope you do it. Don't ask for a stunt,
Yeah.
But that's all I remember about that. And she was lovely. They're all lovely. They were all lovely. They're all very kind. That's all I remember. You only meet them. You only meet them for like 2 days. And that's it. You never see them again.
I mean, is that sometimes a bit disconcerting as an actor, where I suppose it's part of the package, but you sort of get to know people quite intensely, and then a new group comes
exactly
in.
That.
Yeah.
Exactly that. It's like a living physical relationship with somebody. Especially, I mean, there was a lovely actress called Jill Gascoigne. I was doing a Z-Cars with her. I ever seen it was called I can't remember. It was a brilliant Z-Car, very good. I liked it. I liked the storyline, and I had to get into bed with her. And she said, "You can hold me." I said, "All right, yeah." And she said, "You can touch me anywhere." I thought, oh God, no. She was beautiful, and I thought, no, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. You can't repeat that, of course. But no. She was another lovely one who was dedicated to it, to the acting thing in a different way. And I just remember being very open and very full and very honest about it all. That was all.
Well, that's lovely. Because those kind of scenes are obviously probably a bit more difficult than the regular ones, and if you've
very
got
difficult.
that
Very difficult to get out of a bath and all that, and it's and how you cover yourself up in those days and how you don't and all that. So I like keep off the grass. That's what it was called. Keep off the grass, because I grassed on some other people. And the final thing was they were walking through the park, and there was just a notice on the grass that keep off the grass. But there were much bigger parts in those episodes because they did so many of them. Yeah. I thought Z-Cars was great. I liked all that. It was work, wasn't it? Work. You never turned down work.
Well, yeah. You often see interviewers asking, "Well, what attracted you to this role? Why did you?" And of course, it was work. So, just
continuously. Sort of... I've been lucky all my life. I've spent so little time out of work, and I just consider that great luck. Yeah. And of course, in the theatre, you spend years in the theatre. Long runs in the West End, RSC tours, going all around the world. That's a wonderful way to earn your living. That's my favorite way anyway, that was. The films are all, you never get a chance to do it again, in a way. It's obviously a thing to say, but you don't get a way of improving and working on the character, because the characters are very shallow, usually, and very ciphers almost. And so you just get on with it and do it.
But of course, with a theatre performance, you do get a chance to obviously fine-tune a character and a performance and add things and change it. I take that's the better way of working than just turning up on a set, doing it one way, and suddenly that's the only version for that full time.
unless you're doing a big. I did Fallen Hero with Del Henney, who's gone, damn it, bless him. We did two series of that for Granada, and then that I played the sort of physical guy. I don't know, of a big rugby team, and that was wonderful because I never played rugby. He hadn't, but he did play rugby in that. But I was the sort of physical coach. And we got on very, very well. And he wanted, we were going to do a third series, but he wanted to be the producer on it and they wouldn't let him. So we quit on that one. But he was, when you get a series like that, where you do, it's like almost like 6 months work, you know, each episode you do like 3 weeks. And so you build on that character. It's the same character. But in the other things like the Protectors and all that, you're just there for the day, you know, or 2 days. That's the difference.
I mean, a lot of actors I talk to sometimes get quite bored if it's the same thing all the time. Because I think one of the appeals of an actor is that you're not doing the same thing, you're not playing the same kind of people. So suddenly, if you get 3 or 4 years on a TV series, whatever it might be, it can almost be a bit sort of constraining. What's your thoughts on that?
Very probably, yeah. Yes. Coronation Street, I've done them all, did them all of God. Coronation Street. This is a funny story, but the first day I walked into Coronation, I was employed because I was from Manchester. I was born in Manchester, so I had the authentic accent. And I walked into the studio the first day, into the rehearsal room, which was very special, because in the corner of the green room of the rehearsal room, there was a tree, like an ivy, and somebody had counted that the number of leaves on the ivy with the number of episodes they'd done. So they all got a thing about this ivy, and they had special gardeners coming in to keep it. Anyway, that's another story. But it's like you when you move into something like Coronation Street, you move into a completely different world that's completely and utterly established. And because I was from Manchester, I had a northern accent, and they said, "Oh no, it's changed. Jessie Evans is playing your mother." We were a wrestling team going around circuses. And we took over somebody's house in Coronation Street for a week or 2 weeks. And she said, "No, you have to play Welsh." So that's another thing. You arrive on the day and you say, "No, it's not Lancashire, it's Welsh." Because Jessie Evans didn't do Lancashire. And I love those things because you have to flick in, and there's no character, you just do it, you know what I mean? And it builds. It builds.
Yeah.
But that was I did it twice, currently. Quite interesting. Moving into something that's so established. So it's an Albert Tatlock, I don't know if you remember him. Albert Tatlock ran the pub in Coronation Street, early days in the 60s. Yeah. And he came into rehearsal and he said, "Barry Stanton." I said, "Aye." He said, "It's a lad." My wife had just had a baby in London and I wasn't there. "It's a lad." Albert Tatlock. Great character. Anyway, there we are. That's all that's Granada.
Yeah, that's yes, lovely couple of stories. You mentioned so I suppose the leaves on the tree might be
on the bloody ivy and
one of those sort of on the ivy, sort of like one of those sort of superstitions. Do you find there's a lot of superstitions in acting, particularly on stage? People have certain
much more, but you sort of took it. Yes, I mean, there are a lot of very strange superstitions. You can understand why, like whistling and all that, because the cues were always blown through those tubes. So it was a whistle, so you could never whistle in the theatre at all. That was one of them. That was one of the biggest, and all sorts of other things. Like Mr. Sands is in the theatre, which is the fire thing call, so you can't do things. You can't say certain things because it's in the old days. It was the call that there's a fire somewhere in the theatre. So, but the theatre's full of superstition. I mean, and I loved it. I've always preferred theatre, always, because you get a chance to do it again, and you get a chance to go somewhere else and do it, and how they react. You know, not the same London audience every night, but the Chinese audience, the Japanese audience, the Australian audience. I think that's wonderful as an actor, to experience all that. The best audiences in the world were German.
Oh, right.
Playing in Munich, we did The Dream, I think in Munich and in West Berlin, East Berlin, everywhere. Hamburg, Frankfurt, but they were brilliant because they all spoke English. But they were the best audiences in the world. The worst audiences in the world were in Japan because they didn't really understand, and it was rude to laugh. And if you're doing a comedy, it's very difficult to get through the evening with silence. Really appreciative, but silence. So I mean, my life really has been in the theatre.
Yeah.
Well, and the television was just a little bonus, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll touch on your theatre work in a moment. One of the actors in the episode that I'm glad to say is still with us is Michael Culber, and I've met him at a convention a couple of years ago, and I got the impression that some of the things that he was most well known for, a couple of Bond films and things like this, and I think he did a Persuaders. I think he found it a little bit frustrating that all the focus was on just those projects, and given his wider work. Would you feel that a sympathy for that, perhaps?
No, I didn't. No, not really. No, I mean, I know people would come up. I know one guy came once, I never forgotten, and he came to the stage door of the Old Vic when I'd just come off as Falstaff, and it was at the end, and he came and said, "Could I have your autograph, please?" He said, "I remember you in it was, I think that was Zedgar. No, it was the other one. I can't remember. One of them. And it was nothing to do with what he'd seen at all. But he'd recognized the name and that. And I found that quite shallow, really. It's, I don't know, because theatre's not real for people sometimes, but television is. It's a funny thing to say, but I believe that. Television is more real because it's in your home. To go to the theatre, it's about fantasy and all that sort of thing.
I suppose there's always an element of disbelief, isn't there, with theatre? You know, sort of certain things you've got to bring yourself, haven't you? But I suppose as long as you recognise, that's the main thing, isn't it? As long as they, because that person probably might not have come to see the show had he not seen you on TV, and perhaps he really got something from the performance. So you introduce people to theatre through your TV work, I guess. I wanted to ask, Barry, why did you get into acting to begin with? What drove you, and how did you sort of go about it?
Well, starting off in the profession, or you mean right from the beginning? Why did I go to drama school?
Yes. Well, what was the idea of? Oh, yes, I'll give acting a go.
No, it was really weird because I was, as a child, I was a trained ballet dancer.
Right.
And I won a scholarship when I was 14 to Sadler's Wells, as it was then, just before it became the Royal Ballet. And it would have meant moving from Lancashire, where I was living up in Accrington, to London to live in. Got in, and I did the audition, and they offered me a place. I didn't like the idea of at 14 of moving to London and living in the school of ballet. So I quit it all. I didn't go. I started waiting. But my sister said, "Look, why didn't you go to drama school?" And I said, "Well, what's drama school? I mean, you know." And so I started. She said, "Well, get a copy of the stage every week and have a look." And that was when I was about 15, 16. So I applied for RADA. I wrote off and got an audition, which I failed. And I can understand why. But I was wiser when I went to Central School and did an audition. And that was at the Albert Hall. It was the top floor of the Albert Hall then. And I was wiser then because I'd already done an audition. And I got in at Central and I became an actor for 3 years. It was great for 3 years. However, at the end of 3 years, I thought, well, that's it. I've had a wonderful time at drama school. And I thought, what happens if I don't work again? I had no ambition at all. And I got a job immediately through an agent who'd come to see the last show. And I stayed with her, Marjorie Armstrong, for 25 years. And that's how I got into the acting. But it was never a cradle urge and things like that, ever. Yeah. It was just by fluke, in a way. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think most things are, aren't they, in life? You sort of stumble upon things and it either lasts or it doesn't. But, so I just wanted to touch on some of the highlights of your stage work. I mean, it's difficult to know where to begin, but things like Midsummer's Night Dream, 72. I think that you worked with people like Philip Locke, Glenda Jackson, in Great and Small. Well, what are your
Big G, just gone, damn it,
Yeah.
yeah. Big G, my God. I could tell you some stories about that, but I won't, no. Swimming in the Seine, no. We rehearsed a lot in Paris.
Right.
For some, Peter Brook wouldn't come to England to rehearse things, so we rehearsed. I was with Brook from 64 until 74, 10 years I worked with him. There's nobody quite like him in the world, or was. It's a complete enigma, but I adored him. I loved him. I thought I would do anything for him because he didn't demand, except he had demanded honesty. I think that was the main thing he did. But somebody once said in America when they were doing Marisade, he said, if Peter Brook was a horse, he'd be a little Bo Peep out of Rasputin. And I thought, what an amazing description of Peter Brook. Isn't that wonderful? And another one said, yes, it's like, you know, Peter Brook, yes, salt, yes, that's vinegar, yes. Hello, here comes some tomato ketchup. And I know exactly what they mean, the surprise element. But I got on very well with him, and we had a long time together. And working in Denmark on Lear with Schofield, I was Oswald. And on Sundays, we used to go riding, the three of me, him, and Bob Lloyd, and to these crows, which were like hostelries, we had drink, to see Peter Brook on a horse, a three-quarter Norwegian pony, completely drunk. It was quite a sight, I can tell you. It was amazing. And I loved him in all those aspects. And he gave me a lot of work. In 68, we went to Paris, with an international cast, not knowing what we were going to do, well paid, good expenses. Glenda was there, I was there, Henry Wolfe, my great mate, was there, all sorts of people. And Japanese people, French people, German people, American people. And then the revolution happened in 68. So we all had to come back because we worked the man that was paying our wage was Jean-Louis Barrault, believe it or not, who came to teach us and do things with us, and that was great, another experience. And then the only theatre they occupied was the Odeon Theatre, which was Jean Barrault's theatre. So we all came back to London. Roundhouse decided to do The Tempest, so we put on a very strange production of The Tempest at the Roundhouse. So that was that. But Brook, number one. I mean, incredible. Gave you very little, but demanded a lot, which is perhaps good for acting.
I did have the pleasure of seeing Glenda Jackson when she did King Lear a few years ago at the old
performance. And after 10, I didn't go. I never go to the theatre, ever. But my wife went to see it. She said, you know, after 10 minutes, she wasn't a woman, she was a man. You never thought, oh, it's a woman. That cardigan thing. And, you know, I did love Glenda. I did a lot of work with Glenda in the theatre as well. And I mean, I did one show with her, which was directed by Keith Hack, called Gross und Klein by Botho Strauss at the West End. A dreadful play. And she was playing a bagwoman, really. And all these other characters were in it. And I was a secretary at one point in it. And something happened. She was sitting at the desk and I was there taking notes. And all of a sudden I accidentally put something down and all the pencils rolled on the floor. And in the middle of the performance, she says, and now what are you going to do? And that was Glenda, always. You know, she would complete surprise you, out of character. And now what you're going to do? I said, I'm going to pick them up, I suppose. She said, yes. And if you pick them up, I'll wait for you to pick them up. Nothing to do with the dialogue at all. That was Big G. I love Big G. She was a great actress, great character.
I mean, how do you feel about people like Glenda Jackson playing?
I think it's brilliant.
Gender. Yeah,
brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Why not? I mean, why not? Helen Mirren, who I work with a huge amount, did The Tempest, playing Prospero, and it's a daughter. Just it can be. There's nothing changed except it's not the son; it's the daughter. It's the daughter, and that's after a bit you just accept it because I suppose the character and the dialogue is so powerful that you go beyond that. You go beyond.
I mean, I saw Ian McKellen do Hamlet at Windsor a couple of years ago. So
Yes.
it's something that's 80 playing a student that should be in his teens or
Yes,
early 20s,
yes.
Yeah, you're right. 5 minutes later, and you don't
you accept it totally, don't you?
Absolutely. And
if he's a convincing enough actor, which he is, then that's it. You go with it.
Well, I think he said in interviews, and people were saying, "Oh, is this appropriate?" And he said, "Well, I'm 2,000 years too young to play Gandalf, but people bought it, so why not Hamlet?" Yeah,
2,000 years to play Gandalf.
Yeah. And but I think the most impressive transformations I saw in the theatre recently was Bradley Cooper when he played the Elephant Man, and he comes on stage naked from the waist up, and his doctor just describes the condition, and as he's describing that, Bradley changes his body posture and all sorts of and one of the most attractive people on the face of the earth becomes John Merrick, and it's extraordinary.
Who was that?
That was Bradley Cooper.
Oh, right. Amazing. Wow. I know. Well, it's the theatre, I suppose. Filming it would be easy, wouldn't it, on film?
Yeah, with film, you do all sorts of stuff, couldn't you? But it's less constricted, just to sort of, again, the audience is engaging and it's in the imagination. So I just wanted, were there any other highlights of theatre-wise that you wanted to mention, sort of favourite productions?
I worked with two great directors. Brooke is the number one. The second one was the Japanese director, Ohio. What was he called? He's gone in another one. I did a play with him in London, and I fell in love with him because, what was he called? Oh God, I can't remember. Japanese director. We did it at the theatre in London. What was it called? I can't remember. Oh, it doesn't matter. He was fantastic to work with the Japanese, because I'd been to Japan. He'd seen me playing bottom in Japan. So he gave me this part. And at the read-through, he said, "You're playing a character called Nawa Ren. Nawa Ren died recently. The man that played him was a great friend of mine in Tokyo. He's dead. He was a brilliant actor. Over to you." And I thought, well, that's not very good, is it? Not very encouraging, is it? I can't remember his name. Oh God, it's awful, isn't it? Oh God, brilliant little man. We did the Edinburgh Festival with him. Can't remember. It'll come. Sort of Ohio. No, it's gone. It's gone. But he also did a production of The Dream in London. And he'd seen the dream, Brooks' Dream in Tokyo, which I did, bottom in that. But he did a production of his own dream in London at the Mermaid, which I went to see. And it was fantastic, because all the mechanicals, I thought, what's that smell from the kitchen? Because they had kitchens behind. But no, it was on stage. It was the Japanese lunch on stage, the mechanic. I thought, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely. One, I can't remember his name, bless him. He's gone. Ohio or something or other. I don't know. Never mind. But he was one of my favorites. And Zeffirelli. And I wasn't afraid of him, and everybody seemed to be afraid of him. So they said, you can sit down the front and keep him talking so we don't have to rehearse. I keep asking him questions. So I did. And what a man, what a life. I mean, what a life to bring all that as a director. And he said, I want everybody here on time, exactly in the morning. And we will break at that. Within a week, he was having an hour and a half for lunch, 2 hours for lunch, 3 hours for lunch. He was good. Zeffirelli, wonderful, wonderful. He gave me a beautiful picture. I fell in love with him.
So he gave you a little picture, did you say?
Yes, he gave me a picture of the set, which he signed and everything, and said, you are the the genuine center of this production was something which I wasn't really. But he was very magnanimous. But the wonderful story, I mean, I was supposed to just get him to tell stories because he was a fantastic storyteller. And then he'd all shout and say, get on with it, and things like that, and order people about. But during the war, he was a partisan. And after the war, the partisans were rounding up all the people who had sympathized with Mussolini and Hitler and all that. And he was arrested and accused of it and taken to this stadium, this football stadium, where he was going to be tried and executed. And he said, the guy said, what's your name? He said, my name is Zeffirelli. He said, what do you mean Zeffirelli? And he said, well, that's my name, Zeffirelli. And he said, who's your father? Because he was illegitimate. He sold him. And he said, he said, he's my father as well. And I'm illegitimate. They were both illegitimate. So and then the outcome of that was that he had an affair with the man for years. And I just thought, you can't write that down. You can't beat that ever. No. It's just too fantastic. It really is. But anyway, he was brilliant. Hang on, I'll ask the wife. What was the name of that Japanese director I worked with? Ninagawa. Does it ring a bell?
It's somewhere distant. Yes, it does.
Yeah, Ninagawa. Brilliant. Yeah. That's the joy of the theatre, when you work with people like that, also from another country, and a different feeling altogether about the theatre. And you learn so much. You learn not to ask questions, just to listen. That's all.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, I think that's the secret of acting, isn't it? It's sort of reacting and listening to the other, so it's an important skill. We've mentioned a favourite film studio. Do you have a favourite West End theatre that you've worked in?
Oh, favourite West End theatre?
Yeah.
Did you say?
Yes.
The Aldwych.
Yeah.
The Aldwych.
Aldwych, yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. I spent most of my years with the RSC in the London at the Aldwych. I have one tiny thing which I'm very proud of, that in the East End, the big new RSC complex they built for them, which has 3 theatres. They had the main theatre and the musical theatre, and they had the underground theatre. They called it the Pit. I managed to work in all 3, and I thought, bloody hell, that's a good achievement. Yeah, and we did Amadeus in the musical theatre. I thought it was the Barbican. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So I quite like that.
I'm just going back to TV for a moment. I was just wondering, in your experience, how TV kind of progressed through your career. So was working on TV in the 70s different to when you were in the 90s, early 2000s? Has it morphed in any way?
No, not really. Yes, I'm coming. Dinner, she says, the wife. Right. Yes, I'm coming soon. Don't worry. Not really, no. Did it progress? I suppose it just got... They use film more and more and more in television, and I think that's the difference. It becomes longer, slightly more difficult, because it's not as immediate. And studio work is one thing, but when you go on to film for television, it's a much broader... Things like doing all the BBC stuff, they had the money to go into film, and it makes much better episode of whatever you're doing. I thought that was my experience anyway.
Yeah, sure. More like a film, as essentially. Just to finish off some thoughts on the new Avengers. Did you meet Gareth Hunt at all?
Yes,
you did.
Yes, I thought he was an odd choice, but that's you can't quote me on that.
I think most people would kind of perhaps agree in that respect. He was very different to the other.
The sort of flip side of it all. When I met him, he was desperately searching for autograph photographs for the people who sent in to his autograph, and he couldn't find them. That's what I remember about. You can't quote me.
So he liked having his fan mail, and he couldn't find the.
Yeah, he couldn't find them. Yeah. Somebody had hidden them from him.
How was he as an actor?
Good, very good. He fitted the role. He was totally different. Quite straight. Yeah. And I thought that was interesting. But I never really watched things like that. you know, what you're in it, and you've seen behind the scenes, and you think, I was never keen on watching things like the Avengers.
Yeah.
There's certain things like Doctor Who, you know, you think, oh God, how many times are going to drag that? And I did the Doctor Who. But I remember I did a thing on television, and it was called Old Men at the Zoo. It's a brilliant television series. And I worked at all the zoos in England on that. And that was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. At night when everybody had gone, what happened and things like that. So this is the variety you get as an actor. You know, it's extraordinary what you do. It really is.
Oh, absolutely. And so having seen the episode now, how do you think it holds up? Are you happy with your performance?
I think it holds up. It's of a particular type, villain, you know, all that sort of thing, villains. But it holds up because I think it's on the whole, it's well acted. And that's what makes it real in a way.
You've got David Wright. I think the reason why one reason it holds up is that the people that are behind the scenes and also the actors are obviously world-class people, that they worked on film, not just television. So they bring a filmatic look to it, which perhaps other shows might not have actually had. So you're quite happy with your performance and, you know, in the piece. Or as an actor, are you ever happy?
I'm happy with it. Yeah, I was happy with it. It was the best I could do. I mean, he's just a villain. He's been, and the way they cast the villains, they have to look physically different. That's all. They're all villains. You know, it's nice being a villain. It's nice shooting people and things like that. I was working on another one. I don't know what it was. Brentford Dock, and I shot this guy who had to fall in the water. My son's friend, who lived opposite the dock, called him and said, "Your father's killing people in the water." And you think, so he came and stood on the other side of the canal at Brentford and said, "Father, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just shooting this guy 3 times to get," and he had poor guy to fall in the water every time. But that's fun, isn't it? I mean, that's what I love all that. I loved all that.
Yeah. And how important is being involved in these shows? I mean, probably not so much at the time, but is it now quite good to say, "Oh, I've been in the Saint, I've done Champions, I've done the new Avengers"?
Yeah. Because there's always people there who really love those particular shows. I mean, they really do. They sort of live. They know every line of the dialogue. Sometimes they've learned it all because they've seen it so often. They can just repeat it all the time. It's great. No, it's great. I have no shame at all about anything I've ever done. I don't think, because you do your best, and I don't know. I mean, you can be ruined by bad cutting and things like that, but not really. The serious stuff. I'm not talking about those sort of jobs, but the serious stuff on television. I'm not. I wouldn't like to. I wouldn't like to differ. I mean, I wouldn't like to challenge it in any way. I just accept it as a job.
You just look at it at the lens in which it was made at the time. So, well, do you like watching your own work? Because some actors just don't want to watch.
Doesn't worry me. Because you get surprises all the time. Oh, I didn't. Oh, did I do that? Oh, did I do that? You know, things like that. Listen, I've got to go and eat.
Oh yes, but I will let you go. Oh, just one quick one. Having watched the episode now as a viewer, were there any bits you thought were particularly good or bits you particularly liked? Anything that stands out?
I love the physical stuff. The physical stuff. I liked all that. I like that. I like that. Great. Yeah, I thought it was great. And he is so smooth. He's untrue.
Yes. Yeah.
And I told you the story when I saw him at the Roundhouse when we were doing the Tempest, Brooks Tempest, with him and Claire Bloom and Rod Steiger. Why they were together, and Sir John Gilgood sitting on little pieces of polish. I've never seen a lineup like that. I thought that was very funny, looking very sheepish and not quite understanding what was going on, because there was no set and no audiences. There was no seats in the audience. You had to buy a stool or you got a block of polystyrene. That again, Brooke.
Was this a few years after the new Avengers, or sort of about the thing?
This is after the Avengers, yeah.
Any obviously recognised you.
Oh, yes, he knew, because he waited behind, just said hello, well
Oh,
done.
that's nice. Yeah.
He said, I didn't quite know what was going on, but well, that was after the Avengers. And I enjoyed the Avengers. I mean, I enjoyed them all those things.
Yeah. Well,
As long as you don't take it too seriously.
Oh no, it's a bit of fun. It's light entertainment, which is, we need some of that, don't we, these days? Well, thanks very much, Barry, for talking about this wonderful episode, and it's been lovely to talk to you this evening.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Philip. What you said you had a job? Are you in the theatre?
No, I'm a training and recruitment officer. Well, a manager really for a care company. So that's my day job, and this is my passion.
I thought I'd never come across you. You know, you more or less know everybody in the theatre at my age.
Oh, well, I have spoken to a few people, Robert Gillespie and various other people that have. So yeah, I'm a big theatre fan. So yeah, it's been lovely to talk to you about that. So I'll let you get on, have your dinner, and
all right. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Phil. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can indeed, yes.
Thank God for that. What a mission. With these things, you know, all you got to do is keep kicking them until they behave themselves.
Yes, that's pretty much the case.
When these computers came in earlier, we were so nervous of them. Oh, I can't do it. You keep kicking every option. Anyway, go ahead and good luck with all this, because, as I said to you, it may be me saying a lot of, I can't remember.
Well, we'll see how we go. So yeah, thank you very much, Richard, for being happy to sort of attempt to reminisce about the new Avengers. But we'll see how we go. My audience, I'm sure, want to know a little bit about you as much as any recollections we have specifically about the episode.
How boring.
well, my channel is called Lives in the Pictures, so it's very much about the people as much as what we're focusing on. So I just wanted to ask you, why did you get into acting in the first place, and how do you kind of go about that? Just sort of rewind a little bit.
It can be a short story.
Yes.
Almost by accident. None of my family are in the business, and I went to a small drama school, a very small drama school in Brighton.
Yeah.
And by good fortune, the principal of that drama school knew the principal of the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and she hoiked me off up there, and I sat behind the principal's desk, and I can't remember whether I auditioned or chatted or whatever, but I left that meeting. The year had almost already started, so all the students were there. And I left that meeting knowing I was going to Guildhall for 2 years. Can you imagine that? And that changed my life totally. Not that I was aware of it at the time. And then I did 2 years at Guildhall, and I found something I could do to a certain level. And although we didn't realize it at the time, it was the best thing I could have done. Although I'm not a natural, I never have been a natural actor. Not really. Everything I've learned is more my adult life has been doing acting or something to do with acting, writing, directing, and I'm currently a director of an agency, and that has totally changed my life. My 3 kids now work in that agency. I've been doing it since 1966, and when I went back, and because you made me go and Google myself, I said, oh, I've done quite a bit, haven't I? The only thing that Googling doesn't do, and I can't really get the answers I want, is it doesn't really give me stage work. But I do remember my stage work much more than my television work, unless it's work that was notable for a particular reason, you know. There you go. That's the answer to that.
And did you do? So you've done quite a bit of stage work during your career.
Well, I have. I've got an old friend of mine who knew me from drama school days, and she always said, "Well, you worked a lot." And I said, "I don't think so, really," because in the early days, you're kind of always out of work and doing part-time jobs to survive. And your question to me, saying, "We'll talk about your career," made me look, and I went, "Oh yeah." And then, whereas as a jobbing actor, I was doing 1 or 2 or 3 maybe television shows or movies a year. Well, sometimes only a week long. But then you realize that in between all of that, there were Harrogate Theatre I was going to for a season, Liverpool Everyman for a season. Liverpool Everyman was a remarkable place. My first job was at the Library Theatre Manchester with some fantastic people. I didn't realise that I was going to such good theatres. In the early days, I was very, very fortunate. The Library Theatre Manchester was top notch. And I met some good people, and then gradually my career went on. And for some strange reason, I kind of kept on going. Although looking back at the new Avengers, for example, I thought I was poor in it. But at the time, I guess, and I can't remember ever watching it. At the time, I think it was quite standard. What was it, 1970 or something?
As 76. Sorry, this one is 77, series 2.
And I imagine I gave them what they wanted, which was a baddie. But I thought it was embarrassing. But I did send it to my kids, my grown-up kids, and say, you must watch this because it's a fantastic stunt in the beginning, and that's me. And I can't really remember much about it. This is not a criticism of it, but the lead actors, I can't remember having a conversation with them at all, other than doing our lines on the set. You know, I didn't know Joanna Lumley at all, although a lot of my scenes were with her.
Yes.
There you go.
So do you not like to watch your own work, or is it just?
It's not that I don't like to, although yet again you've maybe discovered something that I didn't realise, and I've discussed it with this acting friend of mine who knew me from drama school days, because I thought, and a lot of actors will suffer this imposter syndrome. They think they're going to get caught out, and only when I ask myself why I don't recall them, why don't you remember these things, it's because you dump them out of your mind in order to get on, and what's happening now is much more important than what happened in the past, especially if you thought that you weren't very good. So you don't dwell on it too much. That's really a history of my acting career. I thought I was an imposter. I didn't worry about it at the time, but looking back, why do I forget these things? Because I didn't think they were very good. With one or two exceptions, when they were kind of I won't say they're alternative television, but Mike Leigh and Les Blair and some really good directors like that. They were different kind of productions than the standard. See, The Bill, I think I've got a script for The Bill somewhere. No, not The Bill. Softly, Softly. I cannot remember. I've got a script upstairs, Softly, Softly. I cannot remember what I did at all. But
well, I suppose the passage of time is obviously quite key. I mean, we're talking about 45 years plus,
yeah,
aren't we?
no, not really. I don't think that's the answer, because some actors I know remember everything about their career, and they can even quote lines at you. I couldn't quote a single line of any performance I've ever done. Nope, but they can, and they're actors I really admired. They were just really 100% invested in it, and I always thought they were proper actors. And I just got away with it and survived, and here I am, relatively okay. But all my character, my children, has all been formed by being involved in the entertainment industry. Lucky me, a good unproblematic working life.
Yeah. Did you always see yourself as being a stage actor, or did you kind of always want to try different things?
No, you just took the next job.
Took the next job, yeah.
Took the next job, which I imagine a lot of actors would be like that. You took the next job, and this friend of mine, she said, "You're always in work." But I wasn't in work as much as people I admired, like contemporaries of mine, Sam Kelly, for example, who went from one job to another job. Alan Armstrong went from one job to another job, and they were really, really good actors. And the quality of their acting career was vastly higher than mine. I consider myself a jobbing actor and got away with it.
Right. So in terms of you breaking out to TV work, I assume usual things, somebody sees you in a theatre show and a casting agent.
Yeah, but I mean, in those days, in '66, when I graduated, all the casting directors would go to the theatres and watch, and then they'd call you in. You wouldn't necessarily know the connection, and you do small bits here and there, and then, well, my early days, Doctor Who and New Avengers and I presume Softly Softly, Minder, and they just get picked up by these casting directors, and then you're in their memory for the next job that comes along.
Yeah. And so, thinking of your stage career before we move on, do you have any particular highlights of productions or
Yes,
shows you
yes,
were
I
in?
do. I was at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, I guess back in the 70s, with Mike Ockrent, who went on to have a notable career as a musicals director. He directed the original production, not the original production, but the big revival of Me and My Girl. And I think he went to America, married a second time, and he was the original director of The Producers. But he died before it happened, so they got another director in. And that time at the Edinburgh Festival, where I met Mike Leigh, I was doing a wonderful play called Union Jack and Bonzo by a university professor from Scotland, Stanley Eveling. A really, really good play. Never found it again. It's lost. It's gone forever, that play. And it was Katie Manning was in it. And through that production, because I was there, I met Mike Leigh. So I did an original late night production at the Edinburgh Festival at the Traverse Theatre of a three-hander with Alison Steadman, myself, and Adrian Shergold. Can't remember what it's called now. Anyway, working with Mike, which was difficult. It was hard, but it was really rewarding work. And that gave me a reputation, being in a good alternative play with Mike Leigh, a funny play. A lot of people noted that. So that was in my memory, and I can remember that quite clearly, of staying with Mike Ockrent in Edinburgh and working with Mike Leigh and doing this play, which transferred to the Hampstead Theatre Club and then went to Amsterdam. They were all kind of notable things in my mind. And I also worked at the Half Moon Theatre when it was in the East End. It was in the synagogue, and Daniel Day-Lewis was in that, and it was Dracula,
Right,
by Chris Bond, who was the artistic director of the Liverpool Everyman. No, he wasn't the artistic director. He was a director at the Liverpool Everyman when I was there. And Liverpool Everyman was a really notable alternative theatre. It was all during late Beatles time. And that sticks in my mind. A lot of the people I met there and the production, not necessarily the productions, but the things I did there. And I met Chris Bond there, and Chris Bond cast me as an outrageous servant character to Daniel Day-Lewis's Dracula. And we didn't realize at the time he'd only made My Beautiful Laundrette, Daniel Day-Lewis. A really, really nice guy, very, very talented, and that was an exceptionally fun show to do. And those things stick in your mind. The stage work, sometimes successful stage work, sticks in your mind more.
Yeah. So was Daniel Day-Lewis a very sort of serious in terms, because he obviously
Yes and no.
as well.
He was very focused, which I remember, and he was totally acceptable as Dracula. Everything you would want out of Dracula, which wasn't hammy, was right. He worked it out anyway, so it was very successful, and all the girls were in love with him then. But this must be in early 80s, late 70s, I guess.
Yeah, you can imagine him very good in a film version of Dracula, sort of. Yeah. So you mentioned that you had a couple of roles in Doctor Who opposite. It was Patrick Troughton years, so Fraser Hines, Wendy Padbury. Doctor Who being a bit of a different sort of sci-fi show. Any lingering memories from those times?
Well, I've always thought, in hindsight, that Patrick Troughton was the best Doctor. The others were good, but Patrick Troughton had this very eccentric way of performing. Well, you've got to be if you're playing Doctor Who, that didn't seem to be scared of anybody or anything, and that was quite original. I can't remember him much. I remember in the rehearsal room, I remember Fraser Hines being very nice, Wendy Padbury being very nice. And in the first time I went into Doctor Who, I played a giant toy soldier. Right? And quite often people write to me saying, "Would you sign this?" But the pictures, sign a postcard. The pictures of this toy soldier, it was always 3 toy soldiers, giant toy soldiers, and they never knew which one I was, and I didn't know which one I was because I had a bit face mask on. Now, why I did that, and then they called me back later to do another character, I don't know. And so I did. I was on Doctor Who twice.
I'd imagine that actors are considered to be reliable, so maybe theatre background like yourself, even if it's small roles, they can rely on, people that are good
Not a
grounding.
clue.
I imagine.
Not a clue.
No.
If that was the reason, I got a funny feeling it was Patrick Troughton twice, but I cannot remember any link between the 2 episodes.
Well, the only one I could find was the director, David Maloney, did both your stories.
Yes, he did them both, did he?
He did them both, yeah.
There you go. They just said, "Get that guy." And I can't remember. I imagine the one where I played a living person was second. I imagine. Don't know. Yeah, the fact that I went to drama school will probably have a bit of a difference to it, and had a bit of theatre training.
Yeah. And so Doctor Who was shot on videotape, pretty much sort of shot almost like a play, in that you wouldn't really do much cutting. If you fluffed it, unless it was really bad, it would go in the episode.
I seem to remember they did it in like 3 blocks. So you had to go right through the first block without messing anything up. Otherwise, they had to start again. And then once that was cleared, you went on to the next block. Maybe it was 4 blocks. I don't know.
Yeah.
As you say, on videotape.
And did you find that a challenge? I suppose with theatre background, it would kind of be.
I have to say no, because that was normal.
Yeah.
You wouldn't consider anything abnormal about that, and that's kind of what you trained for at drama school. Not necessarily television, because you trained for theatre, but all the skills you learned there came to the fore, and it wasn't a particular problem. The only problem was you were hardly there. You were there for a week. Whereas theatre, you make friends and get influences from the kind of experience it is that will set you in good stead for the future.
So when it comes to stage work, you enjoy a longer run, so you can sort of.
You don't get paid very good money,
no,
but you can get more out of it. Whereas I consider myself as a television actor, who I developed into a police inspector who would stand with the megaphone in the car park saying, "If you don't come out, we're coming in to get you." And that's what I gravitated, and I would get £1,000 for that for 2 nights. You think, well, that's good money, but it wasn't very rewarding. Whereas if you went to the Half Moon with Daniel Day-Lewis, was extremely rewarding. Or I was in the original production of Whose Life Is It Anyway? And I was on that for nearly 2 years. And that was extremely rewarding, hard, but it was packed out because of Tom Conti. And that was rewarding, but I shouldn't have done it for 2 years, but they kept putting the money up.
Yeah. And you find ways to keep it fresh, of course. It's 8 shows a week, and
you fail and you try different things, and you've been doing it for a year, and you suddenly forget your line. Why did that happen? And then you're not nervous at the end, but you're trying to give as good a performance as you can. I was just playing a solicitor, quite a good part. But being at the Savoy, it was really worth it, and you were getting money. And I was, at the same time, I was running a small theatre in South London, the Croydon Warehouse Theatre, and that was extremely rewarding. That was made a great impression on my career.
So then, of course, something like the new Avengers is a few years later. It's shot on film, pretty much like making a movie, I guess, in terms of how it's.
Well, here we go, Philip. I can't remember, and in fact, I had to ask you. Well, you told me where it was filmed. I don't know if it was Pinewood or Elstree. And you said
it was Pinewood.
Pinewood. And I would have thought I would have remembered that, because I lived in South London. We were picked up by cars and taken there. Well, I loosely can remember being in cars, but there are so many odd productions here where you're taken by car to make sure you get there on time. And I can't remember being driven to Pinewood, although I can remember going into the entrance of Pinewood. But I may have worked on 2 or 3 productions there. No, I can remember a corridor. And it must have been on New Avengers, when an actress who I can't recall, but was quite a well-known actress, said, "Oh, I know you," coming down the corridor. "Oh, I know you. You're good." Those things stick with you.
Yeah, I think the people you can meet in studio corridors, yeah, there's always some good stories. So I take it you were quite used to, you'd worked at probably at Pinewood a lot, Elstree, and
Well, I won't say a lot.
no,
I've worked at Elstree, can't remember what on. I've worked at Pinewood, and obviously the new Avengers, and there may have been one other production up there. And I worked in Rickmansworth when I played the lead in a police drama. I can't remember the title of it, and that was a good part. A good part.
yeah. So you said when you watched the episode again that you didn't quite like the way you played the character. I suppose the character is a obviously it's a classic heavy, but it's sort of almost a bit pantomimey because the Avengers was always
Well, the
a
Avengers
bit
have a
different.
style to it, which I was aware
Yes,
of afterwards. In
yeah.
that for example, you would never see a character coming up to the door, knocking on the door, and going in. He would just be there. So that he had a shorthand to it, Brian
Clemens.
Clemens. He had a shorthand to it. It was very successful and very original. No one else was doing anything like that. And it was a highly watchable thing. But I can't. I'm trying to wonder why on earth I didn't remember any of it. I think because it wasn't necessarily easy to get hold of. If you didn't see it on television, then you couldn't record. If you missed it, you missed it. And certainly now, when with the YouTube or the link you showed me, was I able to watch it? All of which was very fresh to me. Barry Stanton, I loosely remember, but my memory of Barry Stanton was he's a good actor. He's a proper actor. All right, he's playing a villain. I wasn't aware that I had such a big part. I thought I had a small part. But no, looking back at it, it looks a bit gross. I played him. I tried. I'm 5'9" and I was slim then, and I tried to play a heavy. Well, I thought I was miscast, but I got away with it. I seem to have got away with it. I don't know.
Yes. I mean, if you look at say George Lane Cooper, who's again the third heavy. Of course, he's more typically built, like a brick house, and you wouldn't want to beat him in a dark alley sort of situation.
Yeah, but I think it's got a lot to do with when you're at places like Pinewood on a production like that. You spend most of your time in the dressing room, and then when they're ready for you, they call you down. You just go onto the set, and the director says, "This is what you're doing. This is where you're going." You do it, and then when you've done it, you go away again. Now, Patrick McNee, I can never remember talking to ever. He wasn't rude. I can't remember any unpleasantness. Joanna Lumley, exactly the same. Gareth
Hunt.
Gareth Hunt, was it Gareth?
Gareth Hunt, yeah, Gambit, yeah.
I think I probably might have had more conversation with him, but I don't remember too much. In theatre, you're always hanging around with the actors and you're always chatting about things. In those kind of television productions, you're in and out. And when you've done your bit, you go back to your dressing room until you're called again.
Yeah.
They don't come into your dressing room. It's like on EastEnders, everyone's separate. But that I'm just wondering why. Maybe I thought it was bad for me. But I don't see any reason why I should have done, because I've not seen the bloody thing. Only now, looking back, after these many, many years, I thought, that's a bit gross. Acting of the time, I think.
Well, yeah, I think also it's what a director wants. It's what the script kind of dictates a little bit. And I do think it's rather marvelous how you appear outside on the window, just sort of.
I can't remember doing that, and
quite sinister.
I can't remember doing that, but my kids laughed and said how outrageous it was. But it certainly wouldn't have been my idea. They told you this is what you do, and it looked rather spooky and an original shot, so that was good.
I think of your character, they were going for that sort of spooky, strange sort of because obviously you had Barry Stanton and George Cooper. They were kind of the muscle, and I think you were the manipulator and the brains and the.
I could not answer now why I was cast in that part, because you wouldn't naturally cast me in. You want a heavy. They cast heavies all through it. Very well-known heavy actors who are used to playing heavies, and they're all big guys, and everyone was typed to cast. Well, I wasn't typed to cast. Why would they cast me in that part? But I'll never get the answer to that.
So you never had an issue where you felt you were kind of being pigeonholed one particular. You quite free as an actor in that respect.
Not sure what you mean. What do you mean?
Well, you didn't feel like you were always playing a villain, or you were always playing, somebody who was a nasty character? You have
No,
a
not particularly. Only in
borderline.
the latter part of my acting career, and I gave up in the mid-80s, did I feel I could go on doing those kind of roles, not the New Avenger roles, but the police inspector roles and the civil servants, and I could go on doing those for ages. And it was quite. The older you get, it's quite trying. You know, trying to. I'm not a natural actor, so I had to work very hard to do a very kind of focused kind of performance. And I would work with people like Patrick Malahide and Richard Wilson, and they were just free. You know, these guys, they wanted to do it again. I never wanted to do it again. Once I've got it out and got it in the right order. But those guys, you could tell they just want to get back on the set.
So it's a question of energy and kind of sort of.
I don't know. It's I've always thought the great actors are hams.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a ham, but they just want to do it again, and they like being in the spotlight. And that takes a kind of discipline as well. A discipline to be free. I wasn't free. I was trying to get it exactly right and in a very narrow, focused way, using a skill I thought I had to do a particular kind of acting performance. But I'm delighted to say that I don't worry about those things anymore.
Oh yeah. So it's clear that you're aware of the original Avengers TV series prior to your casting, so you kind of knew it was.
Well, I knew the style.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was just then. In hindsight, I say I wasn't properly cast. I'm not a natural heavy. At the time, you just another job. I'll take that. Oh, that's good. I'll take that. Going to apply with that would be good. How much am I going to get? That's fine. I'll do my best. And that was what you have to do as an actor.
I mean, having done quite a lot of events for the Avengers and obviously having to watch the episodes a lot, I think maybe why you were cast, maybe because you didn't look like a heavy. You know, the Avengers always seem to be a bit of a left field and to turn ideas on their head, and so maybe it was
possibly, but they cast all these. When I saw it just recently, you sent me a link. They had all these natural heavies in there that you recognise from movies. They're absolute classic heavies. Now, why was I there? I don't know, but we'll never know the answer, and I got away with it. I think that's fine. That's fine by me.
I assume you don't remember anything about the director. Sidney Hayes was directed that episode. Sidney Hayes?
No.
Can
I? Well, it was a kind of production, I guess, and I've been on these productions before, where the technical crew just get on with it. They don't come up to you and say, "Hello, how are you? What are your thoughts on this?" No one does that. They just stand you in your place. This is what's going to happen. This is the action, right? We'll have a rehearsal. That's fine. Okay, now we shoot it. That's fine. Okay, thanks. We'll clear you now, Richard. Don't need you for a while. So you didn't have much involvement in it. But that was common to a lot of productions. This just had a different style to it, a different look. And if I remember the right production, there were big productions. They were a big studio and a big team on it. So, but a long time ago, and it doesn't feature much in my memory.
No, that's fair enough. It's usually when I ask people those kind of questions, they tend to sort of have very vague memories of the directors and people, and it's usually a good sign, because if they were terrible, you'd remember them like it was yesterday, and if they were fantastic, probably equally. So.
I can't remember getting any grief at all, and I imagine they just, if you do it, you get it done once or twice, maybe do it again. I imagine they didn't do it too often, because Patrick Mooney would have said, "No, I'm not doing that again," because he was an old experienced actor. But I cannot. You just do it, and you got away with it. No one complained. You went back up to your room, wait for the next call.
Yeah, and it's just, say, a few days' work, in and out, very efficient kind of production. So, having seen it again, what do you think of the? Do you think the episode, it holds up well as a piece of television? Do you think it's a good script, etc.?
I wouldn't say that. It holds up well as a new Avengers production or an Avengers. It's a classic style. I mean, Patrick Macnee and the character he created or was given was totally unique. No one did anything like that. This stylish Englishman who didn't seem to care much at all and just looked after. There was no relationship between the girl, the Dinah Reg or Dinah Rigg part, or the Joanna Lumley part. No relationship between them other than a great friendship and innuendo all over the place, but very, very slick. But it was a piece of its time.
Yes, yes. And there was quite a few fight scenes in this episode involving yourself. Did you always like doing action on screen?
Well, I had forgotten that stunt when I went over the sofa when she kicked me. I can't remember ever being hit. And I can't even remember, but they would have had a stunt coordinator there saying, this is what you do and this is where you fall. Can you give it a go? And I did. And they said, oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't remember me coming home and going, why, you never guess what I did? But maybe I did. Because I was really impressed looking back at my stunt activity. The acting, I thought, but the stunt going over that sofa looked very impressive. The way it was shot, anyway.
Yes, it's a good stunt. Of course, you had the freeze frame before the titles, and that was one of the New Avengers signatures, was to always freeze and then pick it up after the titles was over. So that was a good thing for you to have. It was Joe Dunn who was the stunt who did stunts for the episode. So again, he was very experienced. So that's probably why you didn't get any knocks or scrapes or anything.
Well, yeah, I know, but they probably would have said, let's see if he can do it. And if he can't, we'll have to put someone in his clothes and get them to do it. And because I was a young actor, loving all that kind of thing, you had to go at it. And I don't remember hurting myself or it being particularly a high point. Never done stunts before, although you were trained to be physical to a certain extent in drama school, but not to that extent. But I'm sure it was safe.
Oh yeah. So, and by this time, it had been obviously a very slick production for a couple of years, and a lot of the crew had worked on the original series as well. So,
well, I think probably that's why I don't remember too much about intermingling with anybody, because they just got on with their own bits. And especially, you see, why don't I have any memory of Patrick McNee? Which I didn't have any scenes with, I don't think. But why don't I have any memory of Joanna Lumley?
Because you would think she would leave quite an impression, but
say again.
You would think she would leave quite an impression, particularly.
You would have thought so, because
in those days.
I have this memory, extremely nice lady, but I don't remember interacting with her in any way. But she wasn't difficult. I would have remembered that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
She seems like a nice lady anyway.
Yeah. Do you have any impressions of George Cooper? Because of course he was quite.
I was surprised.
Physically distinctive.
I was surprised when I saw him in the episode. Oh, he was in it.
Yeah. It always turns up in these things. The only other person you have any interaction with, an actor called Simon Oates. I don't know if you encountered him in anything else, or
what does he play?
He plays Spellman. He's the he's the traitor. So basically, somebody's trying to set up Steed, and he's the one. But
it would have been Gareth Hunt, and it would have been is it Hunt? Gareth Hunt?
Gareth Hunt, yeah.
And Barry Stanton.
Yeah, so those are two that you kind of
people I would have been working with. And as I say, Barry Stanton was a regular actor, and I can always remember seeing him in I think Toad of Toad Hall at the National Theatre. I hope I've got that right. Yeah. And he was a regular good actor, and he was playing a heavy to me.
Yeah,
I guess it was early part of his career. How old's he now, Barry Stanton?
I'm not exactly sure. Must be sort of late 70s. But I've lost our train of thought. Actually, what were we just talking?
We were discussing how much you're going to pay me for this video.
Oh yeah, yes. Yes, I will get back to you on that one. I was just wondering, because you started off shooting on videotape, and then TV starts to come to film. Is there a bit of a transition in terms of you learning another skill, or is it a slightly different sort of pick up?
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me ages to learn. I don't think I ever did learn it, how small you can be for the film camera. Although I don't think that was required for the New Avengers.
No.
They were kind of broad characters, weren't they? All were very broad characters.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I suppose also black and white versus color makes no difference from an actor's point of view. It's perhaps more sort of a technical sort of issue. Obviously, you've done a lot of guesting roles. Do you get to bring much to it yourself in terms of your costume, or can you have inputs, or do they kind of sort of
almost 100% no?
And
you turn up, you hopefully know it quite well. You get put into the ward. You probably had a costume fitting before at Berman's or somewhere, and you accept what they tell you, and then you turn up and get made up and have your breakfast and sit in a coach waiting for your call and turn up. And I knew I did a Poirot once, and I knew the director,
Yeah.
and he was concerned what my input would be. He was interested in my input. Very nice guy, and I knew him from somewhere else. Can't remember where else I knew him from, but that was unusual. The style then, maybe it is now, you're required to turn up knowing it, being confident in it, and maybe if you were very comfortable with the director, or you knew them, like I did a few episodes on EastEnders, you may be able to, well, they rehearsed a bit before they did it as well. You could maybe suggest doing it a particular way, and you might get away with that. But on those big productions, television productions like New Avengers, you wouldn't, no way. Just do it and do what they told you. I can't remember a circumstance where you say, well, I think I ought to do it like this, or I may have done, but I can't remember it at all.
Because lots of actors I speak to who've worked in both videotape and film tend to miss that rehearsal time that you used to have. You used to be able to gel a bit more, and as you say, with Avengers, you were in and out, and it was very impersonal.
Who you'd rehearse it, EastEnders, you rehearse it. I can't remember about Softly. I can't remember it. But normally those BBC productions, you'd turn up and be in a rehearsal room at Acton, and if it all taped out on the floor, and that's how you do it. But that New Avengers was closer to a movie.
Yeah. And I've done, of course, a lot of TV works, episodes of The New Statesman, as you said, Minder, Zcast, etc. Do you have one or two favourite TV roles that you've had?
Nope. And some of those you've mentioned, I had to go, oh yes, I was in that, wasn't I? You're kind of in and out. It's the life of an actor. You're sitting and waiting, and they call you. You go into a strange location and get told by the director, or even the assistant director, what you're going to do, what's proposed. Director come up and say hello to you, then you go off and get behind the camera. That would be British television acting, and you do your best. And then they would say, that's a wrap. Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you. Off you go, and you get a car home or whatever.
Is it sometimes a bit off-putting, that kind of life where you're sort of coming in out of different places, or is that a thrill as an actor?
It is, yes. One of the reasons actors hang on to things, hang on to acting when they shouldn't, is that kind of pirate life, when you don't know what you're doing the following week, and you get quite well paid for a very small amount of work, and sometimes you do night shooting. Which, although it's boring, but it's quite interesting, and there you are, getting your cup of coffee and all your croissants and buns and things that are laid out for the actors, or a big meal, and you feel quite special. Although you're very much down the food chain.
You worked also with some great actors in your TV career. Ian Cullen was in Zcast. I don't know if you remember Ian Cullen at all.
Well, I know of him, but I can't remember interacting with him. Douglas Fielding, I think he was in Softly or Zcast? Douglas Fielding, I think he was in one of the TV series, one of the police TV series.
I've definitely got him as Zcast, but possibly other things as well.
I think I met him later on in my career, Douglas Fielding.
I want just to mention New Statesman very quickly. Just Rick Mail, was he? Did you encounter him at all?
I did. I got a funny story about that. Not about the New Statesman. I was in a pilot, not Rick Mail. I don't remember interacting with Rick Mail. It seems quite straightforward. I was in a pilot for Blackadder.
Oh, right.
And it was the pilot, and I was to play a Scotsman, a mad Scotsman, and I wasn't seen for an audition. I was just given the part. And I did it as best I could, convinced that they thought I was someone else. When I walked in, oh my crikey, that's not the right guy. I did the pilot, and I don't think that pilot was ever shown. And when they did it again, I wasn't anywhere near it. And I think another Scotsman played it, a proper Scotsman.
Yes, I think I actually met the gentleman who took your role. Actually, I can't remember his name.
Took my role, cheek. But that was one of these things. Well, it rarely happens. You don't audition for it. You get offered it, and you get in there and you think, they're too embarrassed to tell me I'm not the right person. They don't know, because to play a mad Scotsman, to play Scottish is difficult enough. To be a mad Scotsman, and here am I, with not red hair. It was a typical crazy Scotsman. I did my best, and there you go.
Have you always sort of liked accents and those kind of things,
Well, I did it occasionally. I hold the back page. I played a Scotsman. I think I just got away with it in all the episodes with David Warner. I just got away with it, but I think any Scotsman would just raise his eyebrows and say, "Oh my God, why don't they cast a Scotsman?" And I'm entirely sympathetic with it. But you just took these jobs. That'll do. Well, that's quite a unique job, and it was quite a unique job.
What's interesting is that pilot was actually aired, I think it was earlier this year on Gold. They obviously got special permission to do it,
but not with me in it.
The original unbroadcast pilots. So yes, that would be your version.
Well, don't show me that. Whatever you do, that must be.
I haven't actually seen it myself, but assuming they didn't do any other versions of it, then yes, that would be your version. So it very much exists. It's out
and
there.
all the regular characters were in it.
Hmm.
I think Tony Robbins was there, who I loosely knew through Equity, and the lead actors were there, and I just did my bit as an actor, and then left. And and then I think it went quiet for some particular reason. The production didn't happen, and then it kicked off and was a massive hit.
Yeah, so there was an awful lot of changes they made with it. I mean, for example, Rowan Atkinson's Blackadder was, I think, originally very much like he became in the later series, and so they did change an awful lot of.
Well, I can't. Yes, watching Blackadder, I don't remember any of those characters as they were. I can only remember the rehearsal room at the BBC in North Acton, and me being outrageous as a Scotsman. Not very successfully, I thought, and I'm convinced they were just too embarrassed to tell me. It might be a common thing when they say we've got the wrong actor. We'll do it again anyway. Get another actor.
I suppose you've got to have quite a thick skin as an actor, though, to sort of.
Well, no, you've got a very thin skin. You don't show it, but it was very odd that I was cast without being auditioned. And normally, you get auditioned. Why I got it, I think they thought I was someone else.
I've looked it up, and it was an actor called Alex Norton that played.
Oh, Alex Norton.
Yes.
Well, I know Alex. I haven't seen him for many, many years, and I directed him, I think, at the Warehouse Theatre Croydon. He's a cracking actor, and of course he's Scottish, so he got the right actor in the end.
Yeah. Again, it's what sometimes fits, isn't it? And it's inexplicable sometimes exactly what.
Well, that's not inexplicable. You would just say someone screwed up. What do you get him for? He's not Scottish. And you go to the casting director, why did you get him? I didn't want him. I wanted him. But then they had these spotlight books. But I may be wrong, but I was convinced they got the wrong actor and they couldn't do anything about it.
Of course, you did do some directing and some writing. Was that in a way more rewarding than?
Very much so. Very much so. You haven't got the horrors of having to try and do the acting, which for me, I won't say stressful, but you have to be incredibly focused, even to be halfway good. But directing, which is hard, and I don't think I was particularly successful, although I enjoyed it greatly. And writing, which I did a little bit of television writing and a little bit of stage writing, and that's really, really good. But I don't. None of these things I do anymore. I mean, I've been a theatrical agent since '86. And semi-retired now, although I don't work on the actors list, I work on a creative list, which is directors, designers, choreographers, fight directors, and things like that.
And was it a specific moment that you thought to yourself, I want to step away from acting?
No, not a specific moment. I was the artistic director of the Warehouse Theatre Croydon, which they were funding lunchtime theatre. Such a pity they don't do that anymore. They were funding lunchtime theatre, and we got away with that. That was quite successful. Didn't make any money, and then we did evening shows. We did 8 proper productions at the Warehouse Theatre Croydon. But I knew that there never would be enough money for me to survive being artistic director, working on project grants for the Arts Council. And I tried once or twice to break away into other theatres, with no great success. But having set up the company to do that, it also allowed me to run an agency. So with two other people, I started a theatrical agency, kind of representing my mates, and that here we are. I employ about 11 people now. We've got 2 offices in Manchester and in London, and that goes from strength to strength.
Well, good, yeah, because of course, very difficult times with COVID and all that sort of thing, and
well, we got through that, but
yeah.
I do pride myself that was successful because I knew the business. I knew people, knew the business, knew what was good, knew what was bad, and was able to thrive in that environment relatively successfully. And it's much more successful now, not since I left, but since I moved on to the creative list. And I think we have 5 agents with assistants working very, very hard, and they work in a slightly different way to me, but much more successful than I did.
Right. And do you have a favorite project in your career, and if so, why would that be?
What do you mean?
Well, so you have if you had to say, if you wanted to be remembered, say for one role, what would it? Do you have something?
I don't think so, because
no.
Although acting was terrific and it taught me such a lot, and I met my wife through acting, and my kids have all been involved in that life, so that I was extremely rewarding, and I thank the Lord that I got a life through this entertainment industry. Acting I found very hard. I was not as bad as some, and I was not as good as others. And some of the people, as I've mentioned earlier, they could just do it, and they loved doing it. And I just wanted to do it once or maybe twice, and I wanted to stop then.
Yes.
And I've worked with some very good people, Mike Lee, Les Blair, Michael Lindsay Hogg in the West End, and Chris Bond, and Pete James at the Liverpool Everyman, and some great people came through my I met up with, came through my life, and all that's down to acting. Although the difficulty of being a good actor is you can't describe how hard you have to work at concentration and delivering what you want and what they want.
Yeah. And how important is it? Well, probably not important, but is it nice to have credits like Doctor Who's, Ed Carr's, The Avengers on your CV? Is it to give you any pleasure at all?
Not being dismissive to those productions, but they were jobbing actors who just did them, and in those days, the late 60s, 70s, and 80s, that's what you did.
Yeah,
and those were those particular ones you're mentioning on Doctor Who and Ed Carr's and Softly Softly, not EastEnders. EastEnders was slightly different. And the New Avengers, if you got offered it and they paid well, you got away with it, that's absolutely fine. But these things wouldn't stay with you. Whereas Mike Lee's The Birth, 5-minute film, The Birth of the Goalkeeper of the 2001 Cup final, 5-minute film, stayed with me forever.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable thing to do. And Nuts in May, a tiny part in Nuts in May, and all that has stayed with me because they were unusual productions. But no disrespect to those other productions, they were good jobbing, and I was lucky to get them and get away with it.
Yeah, as you say, there's special things to you that a lot of people won't necessarily know about, but those are the things that are dear to your heart.
Well, they do, because you had some flexibility. You could create something that was unique. Whereas in the other productions that you mentioned, the Softly Softly's, New Avengers, and Zcast, etc., you're just playing a type, and you're going to do it as good as you, as well as you can, and not mess up, because then they use you again.
I think we say a type, I think, is quite key, because I know that Brian Clemens was always a bit sort of self-deprecating in regard to his talent, and he always said when he did the New Avengers, people always said it was more complex and it was darker, and he just said when it came to writing characters, he just used thicker cardboard. So he was just basically saying that he wasn't his huge dimensions that people then sort of gave him credit for.
Yeah,
But
those jobs, you see, wouldn't stick in my mind. Maybe I'm
no,
unusual, but they wouldn't stick particularly
yeah,
in my mind. But then, as I referred to before, some
mm,
actors can remember each and every job they worked on, and some
yeah,
of them remember
yeah,
the lines.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it depends I did an event with Malcolm McDowell for the film If, and he knew the dialogue.
Yeah, although that was a big, huge production, and
But
that would have stuck
yeah,
with me
yeah,
because it wasn't like
yeah,
the sort of jobs I did were TV regular jobs that were going to the jobbing actors of the day.
yeah.
But if, of course, that was that was unusual.
Oh, it was quite something, wasn't it? And well, and still is. So you say you wouldn't have probably cast yourself in the role. Do you know what you might have done differently now if you could have gone back and?
Yes, I wouldn't have put on a silly voice.
Hmm,
I put on a baddie's voice like this, I think.
yeah,
And
yeah,
why not speak like that? That's crazy.
yeah,
I would have spoken normally, but that's very hard to do when you're being given the part of a villain. With
yeah,
experience, I would have known what to do.
hmm,
But of course, I wasn't particularly experienced then. You just did what you thought they wanted. And of course, I should have matched up what I look like with the voice.
yeah,
Maybe I could have, there I genuinely would have been different from all the other heavies that were around. And
yeah.
I couldn't get over my moustache. With this huge, great 70s moustache,
It's quite impressive, isn't it?
looking back at it, that was normal.
Hmm,
Nothing unusual about that at all. But
yeah.
looking now, who on earth would wear that? It was such a gross thing, but very, very common.
Yeah, certain things that will date shows like this, that the fashion and hairstyles, facial hair, etc. So
I think the voice got me most. And why was I putting on a baddie's voice? Why was I doing that? It might have been required of me.
yeah, it might be a director's note or something in the script
I
or
just don't know. I just don't
something.
know. It would have
Yeah,
been in the script. I can't remember him saying to me, can you be a bit badder?"
yeah, yeah. Well, they obviously liked it because obviously it's it didn't recast you and anything
No,
like
yeah,
that.
I guess, but they could recast you very quick if you were bad. I don't think I was in line for recastings. I kind of got away with it because we were trained to do it. But there you go. Who
I suppose
knows?
we're all our harshest critics, aren't we? Really, in a way. So things that you might notice, the audience
A
won't
lot of the
necessarily.
productions, you see, that I was in that you've referred to, I've not seen.
Hmm,
Can't remember, and so that's all right. But it's only
yeah.
when people like you come and show you a link and make you look at it, you go, "Oh my God, how did I get away with that?" But everyone was getting away with it.
Is it like looking at another person, or can you recognise
Absolutely no, no, another person. It looked
another
like
person?
we
Yeah,
spoke like that and tried to be a baddie.
yeah, yeah. So I suppose, is it? Do you find it odd that 45 years on, people are still, or 60 years in the case of Doctor Who, almost 60 years, that these things still have life? Is it strange to you
It's
that?
very odd, but if they like it, and
Mm,
now and again I get asked to do a Doctor Who convention. And I think, what on earth for? I mean, I take this
mm,
minor character, and that's where they come across with the toy soldier photographs. Would you
yeah.
sign this, please?
Mm,
It could have been anyone in there.
yeah.
Although peculiar enough, the face did look like me, but I think that was a
Mm.
pure coincidence. Um, yeah, but you just go along. If they give you 100 quid, you go along and do it.
What makes me laugh is people that played stormtroopers in Star Wars, and then there's 50 people in a picture, so it's not just free. It's so. But do you enjoy interacting with the fans? Do you find those things fun?
I would say no. I don't.
No.
Not that I'm rude and
Mm,
I understand,
yeah,
but you have to admit they're odd occasions. They're
it's
very
quite
odd.
it's quite intense. I've been to a few conventions, and it is intense.
You get sat behind a desk
Yeah,
and people queue. I can understand them queuing up to get Malcolm McDowell's signature.
yeah,
These were big famous people.
mm,
Um, or the guy who played Columbo. I understand that because they're
mm,
but to get a jobbing actors. But I guess you then have to think, well, hang on, they've got everyone's signature except yours in that
mm,
episode. So they want to get the tick the box.
mm,
It's beyond me. But then I'm, as you would have discovered today, I don't. Acting was very useful to me, but I
mm,
don't.
yeah.
I was very delighted when I gave it up.
Mm. But I think it's quite amazing how much affection people can have for actors because they were in a show, and how much it can mean because it's linked to somebody's childhood or a special moment in their life, and
Yeah.
suddenly shows like the new Avengers, which are just a few days work, become so important, so therapeutic to people.
Well, I'm
It's
very
amazing
lucky to
the
have been
power
in
of
them,
it.
but they don't sit with me because life goes on.
Yeah,
But you
yeah,
see, I own my own house. I don't know how, but it's through acting.
yeah, yeah.
How about that?
Well, yeah, that's the
How about that?
yeah.
That acting's put me in that position.
Mm.
And you would have said, if your son or daughter was going into acting, you say, don't do that, don't do that.
Yeah.
But I came up in the 60s when they were giving money to people who didn't have any money to go to drama school.
So you
All
got
the kids
the grants to do it, and
got a grant to do it, yeah. And I don't remember being poor at all, although we were. But the kids now, if you come from an urban environment, say, how are you going to go to drama school if you haven't got any money and they're not giving you any money?
yeah, yeah, that's true. So you, I take it you would never change it. You would do it all again.
Yes, I do it better second time around.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't change. I don't regret any of it whatsoever.
Mm.
What a lucky lad I've been, but it is lucky. I got a lot of fortune. So some of it deserved because I worked hard and took it seriously.
Mm.
But I don't think my talent was huge. It was okay. I was a good jobbing actor, and I met some very good people, and I was very and worked on some very interesting projects
Yeah.
over the years. Not lots of them over the years. And good fortune has got me to where I am now.
Mm. It's to say it's a lot of luck, isn't it? Of anything in life, it's
Well, to a certain extent, but I mean,
yeah.
it's not just. I'm saying that if you work hard and you're
Oh,
reliable,
yeah, that will do it
then
well.
that will reverberate, and the casting directors will go, "Well, he's okay. He doesn't get drunk, and he'll be there on time, and we don't hear bad things about him, and he's quite interesting looking. Yeah, yeah, get him in."
I was doing an event with a guy doing a lot of theatre, and he was saying that being a good company member and being reliable sometimes was more important than being a fantastic actor. If you were,
Well, I'd say it's more important, but I do remember
yeah,
a director colleague of mine indicated to me that he couldn't cast someone who he couldn't get on with, who was difficult in a regular role. If it was a star, it might be a bit different. But it's very important to them to have people who would just say, okay, can you be quiet over there in your caravan and just wait until we call you, rather than keep coming up to me and saying, can I do it like this? Or I'm not sure. I'm not. They don't need that when they've got all the pressures of production. So they need regular guys and girls who are going to keep quiet and get on with it and deliver what is right for the film, TV production, and for you and for them. Stephen Whittaker, that was a guy who directed Poirot. He was unusual because he did give you time and he did talk to you about what you wanted to do and where he thought it was going, etc. But that was unusual.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's probably a lovely place to end it, Richard. Thank you very much for a lovely chat and looking back at the new Avengers.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. And I'll send my invoice to you, okay?
Yeah, I will. Yes, I'll have a look at it.
Very nice to speak to you, Philip.
Nice to speak to you. Thanks very much. Have a nice week. Bye. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching this new Avengers event, looking back at the episode Hostage. I want to thank my guests, Barry Stanton and Richard Ireson, for joining me to talk about this episode. And thank you very much. Bye-bye.